Bhagavad Gita, or the Lord's Song, or the Song Celestial, is the longest philosophical poem in the world. It occurs in the great Indian epic, the Mahabharata, in its Bhishma Parva. The Gita is the product of a great universal mind, namely Sri Krishna, whom the Hindus consider as the incarnation of the divine. The philosophy that is expounded in the Gita has as its background the great Upanishads, the last sections of the vast and varied Vedic literature. In these Upanishads, you have a profound message of man's intrinsic divine nature, discovered by great sages through their inward meditation. What is the true nature of man? Is he merely the body, merely this organic system, or the little ego that presides the organic system? Our sages took up this great challenge in those far-off times, nearly 4,000 years ago, and in their great literature, the Upanishads, they discovered the profound truth that man is essentially divine. This comes to us in a great verse of the Upanishads, Shrinnantu Vishve Amritasya Putraha Aye Dhamani Divyani Tastuhu Vedahametam Purusham Mahantam Adityavarnam Tamasah Parastad Tameva Viditva Adimurtumeti Nanya Pantha Vidyate Ayanaya. The sage proclaims a profound gospel to all humanity. He invites all humanity to share in the good news of this message. The message which says that man is a child of immortality, not a child of darkness, not a child of delusion, not a child of sin. Essentially, all humanity is divine. This is a truth which he discovered through his own inner penetration, and he proclaims it as a joyous news to the whole world. Listen to me, O ye children of immortality, says the verse. Even those that live in the higher spheres, in the heavens, they also need this redeeming message. What is this message? Is it taken from books or hearsay, or concocted by a fertile brain? No, says the sage. I have realized this truth. Vedahametam. What is the truth? The divine, infinite dimension of the human personality, organically limited to our sensory vision. Essentially, man is infinite, immortal. This discovery is one of the greatest discoveries in the world. And the sage says, man is luminous like the sun, beyond all darkness and delusion. And then finally, he says in the last two lines, Tameva viditva adimrittumeti nanya pantha vidyate ayanaya. By realizing this truth alone, can man transcend death and delusion. There is no other way. There is no other way. Like a true scientist, the sage said, I have realized this truth. Like a true scientist, he also said, simply believing in this truth will not save anyone. He must realize the truth for himself. Believing that milk is nourishing doesn't nourish you. You must drink the milk, then you get nourished. And so, from the ancient times in the Upanishads up to our own times in Sri Ramakrishna, you find this truth proclaimed in the Hindu religion. Religion is a matter of realization. It is not a matter of belief, dogma, or conformity. This is the true dimension of every human being. And nature has given to every human being the organic capacity to realize this truth and to achieve life fulfillment. This great message is conveyed to us in the various Upanishads, 10 or 12 in number according to authentic tradition, hundreds that came in later ages, but in all of them, this truth is presented before us through discussion, dialogue, argument, with much rational conviction and much philosophical strength and much mystical charm. That is the eternal beauty and charm of this immortal literature known as the Upanishads. The Atman, the divine in man, can be realized. But in the Upanishads, there is so little of practical guidance given to ordinary humanity to realize this truth. Highly gifted minds who are pure, they can easily realize this truth. But to the workaday men and women, this truth is rather difficult to understand, difficult to realize. So for centuries after the Upanishads, this truth remained the property of very gifted people, ascetics, monks, people living in forests and caves. They understood this truth. They realized this truth about their own divine nature. But the vast mass of humanity, this message was too high. They lived in ordinary superstitions or popular religious practices and beliefs until a great teacher appeared in ancient India, namely Sri Krishna. He gave this great message of an original philosophical strength, of a comprehensive universal spirituality in the Gita to his friend and disciple Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. That is its uniqueness. The teacher is unique, a man of intense action, a great leader, a universal mind. And the student Arjuna, equally strong, heroic. And these two met together for a philosophical dialogue, not in a cave, not in a forest, but on the battlefield itself, Kurukshetra. That is how the Gita begins. Dharmakshetre, Kurukshetre, Samaveta, Yuyutsavaha, Mamaka Pandavascheva, Kemagurvata Sanjaya. What did Arjuna and Krishna do? What did the warriors on both sides do on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? Asks the Indian emperor Dhritarashtra to his advisor Sanjaya. That is the first verse of the Bhagavad Gita in the first chapter. So that this great message of the Gita is essentially a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Arjuna's mental condition is described in the first chapter. That chapter is a beautiful name, a significant name, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the yoga of Arjuna's grief. Arjuna was smitten with grief when he found he had to fight with so many kinsmen, uncles, brothers, and leaders, and even one's own teachers. They formed the group in the enemy party. How can I fight all these people? I would rather die at their hands than kill them with my hands. I would rather be a mendicant than aspire for a kingdom. Now these views look very, very moral, very ethical, very pleasing. But Krishna did not appreciate this attitude of Arjuna. Arjuna betrayed a good deal of weakness, a good deal of emotional breakdown in expounding these moral ideas. Morality and ethics must be associated with greater strength, greater heroism. But the last verse of the first chapter, dealing with the grief of Arjuna, describes Arjuna's condition